Hi, I'm Roy from Roy's Garage. Today I'm going to be working on a 2000 Toyota Tacoma. I'm going to be replacing a defective brake booster. The problem is there's no assist and it's really hard to stop. Okay, these are the tools I'm going to be using for this job. A flat tip screwdriver, 17mm wrench. This is a 14mm wrench. Plier, long nose plier. 10mm tubing wrench, 3/8 ratchet. This is a 3/8 extension, 10mm socket, 12mm socket, 12mm flex socket, some Daughtry brake fluid, and some super white grease. This is the only part that I need to do this job, a rebuilt brake booster. Okay, so I'm going to be removing this brakemaster cylinder. We're going to disconnect the fluid level sensor wire. Disconnect the brake tubing. Okay. Removing the 4 bolts that bolt the master to the booster. So we're going to disconnect the brake tubing. Okay. Take this bracket off. Okay, so I'm going to be removing this vacuum hose. Okay. And then we're going to be removing this bracket. There's a bolt over here and there's a bolt on the bottom. So we're going to be removing this bracket. So now we're going to go under the dash. We're going to remove 4 bolts that secure the booster to the firewall. We're going to be disconnecting the push rod that goes to the brake pedal. So we're under the dash, so I'm going to be removing this brake pin. So I'm going to remove the spring, the return spring first. Then I'm going to be removing this clip. Then I'm going to take this pin out. So I'm going to be removing these 4 bolts that bolt the booster to the firewall. Okay, now that we removed the 4 bolts, now I can go to the front and pull the booster out. Okay, now we're going to be pulling out the booster from the firewall. I'm going to remove that bracket. Okay. So this is the defective booster, and this is the new one that I'm going to be putting in. This new booster, it came with this piece right here to screw it on. But before you put it on, make sure that pin that slides through, make sure it fits first before you put it on. Sometimes the hole might be a little bit too small, and you don't want to assemble everything and then later on find out the hole is too small. Then you got to pull everything apart. So now is the time. You get the pin, stick it into this hole, it fits. Now you can put this piece on to that. And then now we're going to be transferring this gasket over to the new booster. And on the other side, we're going to be transferring this fitting over to this because it's different. Then we're going to be transferring this gasket over to the new booster. So now we can install the booster. Okay, so we're going to be installing the booster. So we gotta make sure, I gotta go underneath the dash. I gotta make sure that the push rod slides between the brake pedal. Okay, you gotta make sure that this booster goes right in between the brake pedal. Okay, now we can shove the booster against the firewall. Okay, so I shoved the brake booster against the firewall. So now I'm going to be bolting up the 4 bolts. So I tighten up the 4 bolts that mount the booster to the firewall. So now what I'm going to do is line up this pin. See if this pin can go through. It's close. So what I need to do, get a plier, grab this shaft. I either got to turn it clockwise or counterclockwise. So in this case, I think this piece has to go more towards the front. So I'm going to be turning this shaft clockwise. Okay, so what we need to do now is, before I put the pin on, I need to grease up the pin. So I'm going to use some white grease to put on the pin. Okay, so we're going to be installing the pin. Okay, so we're going to be installing this lock. Okay, and now we're going to hook on the spring, the return spring. Okay, so now what we need to do is, we're going to have to have a little free play, a little gap. Yeah, so what we need to do is, this pedal, we're gonna have to kind of like push it up and down. If it's really solid, then what we might have to do is adjust the booster. So I have to shorten the rod. So I'm gonna be turning that shaft counterclockwise until there's a little free play. Right now there's no free play, it's solid. So we gotta get some free play, at least 1/8 to 1/4 inch free play. So I'm gonna be turning this thing clockwise. Okay, I adjusted the push rod. So I checked the free play. This is actually too much. So we're gonna have to lessen it, maybe about halfway. Yeah, so what I'm gonna do is lengthen the rod a little. Okay. So right here, that's just about how much free play you want. Now we're gonna have to tighten up the lock nut. Use a 17mm open wrench and tighten the lock nut. Okay, so tighten up this lock nut just so the shaft doesn't turn. Don't have to be super tight, but just enough, like that. Double check your free play. That looks perfect. You gotta have free play. Okay, that's perfect. So now we're gonna be installing the master cylinder. So before we install the master cylinder, we're gonna install this bracket from the intake manifold to the block. Installing this bracket. Okay, put this guy on. Okay, now we're going to be installing the brakemaster cylinder. Okay, I'm going to be installing the brakemaster. First, what you want to do is connect these brake lines first. Okay, now we're going to mount the brakemaster against the brake booster. Don't forget to put this bracket on. Now we're going to be connecting the level sensor. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill up the master cylinder with brake fluid, and I'm going to bleed the brakes from right here. But first I got to tighten up these brake lines. Okay, so we're going to be tightening up these brake lines. Okay, so I'm going to be putting in some brake fluid. Okay, so now I'm going to start it up, and I'm going to be pumping the brake pedal up and down no more than halfway. I'm going to be starting up the car, pumping the brake up and down no more than halfway. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be holding the brake pedal with my hood prop, and at the same time I'm going to be opening up the brake lines in the front to see if there's any air coming out. So I'm going to be opening up these screws, and if there's any air trapped in here, it's going to come out. That's how you bleed the master. Okay, so make sure your brake lines are tight. Get some water, shoot it on. Brake fluid is water soluble. Wipe it dry. Then what you need to do is start up the car with the hood prop. Push the pedal down against the seat for a little while, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Check your lines, make sure there's no leak. If there's no leak, you're all good to go. Right now I'm pushing the brake pedal down with my hood prop against the seat. Looking at these connections, they look dry, no leaks. Pump off your fluid. I road tested the vehicle, it works perfect. If you like my videos, please subscribe and give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video. Aloha.